Hello students. So this is the second video which I'm doing on the mini project. So the mini project name is Cloud Web Application Builder through AWS Academy. So so essentially, as in my first video we said, we have to make a scalable, available website. So I already showed you how to create a website, and in my first video. In the second video we want to focus on the availability part. So as far as the availability part is concerned, what does availability essentially means? That there is a alternate copy in case if the first one crashes for some reason. So if you the difference between availability and high availability would mean that you are enabling availability across zones. So whenever you are enabling availability across zones, it means it is a high availability. So there is a distance of 100 kilometers between the two zones. So if something happens in one zone, the second zone will be available. So since we need two zones, so we need to create a network, and that would ideally be our first step. Creating a network, a VPC network, in which there are two zones, and each zone has a public subnet and a private subnet. The private subnet will contain the database, and the public subnet will contain the website. So here you can see there is a public subnet, there is a private subnet, and the RDS, the main master copy, is over here, and the replica is created over here in the second zone. So there is a web server which is created over here, but you can create it in zone A also, so it's okay. It's not necessary that you have to create it in zone B. So essentially what we want to do, we're going to have something similar diagram, except that we might have a web server not here but here in the public subnet, and we will connect this web server to our database over here, and that database has a second copy, so it is kind of high, you can't say exactly high availability, but still because this is a read replica. But if you make an exact a passive database, you can do that as well. We don't want to do this in this case because of the limited resources. So we'll go with the web server in the public subnet, which will access the database in the private subnet. So let me remove this diagram so that the confusion is lesser and the diagram is more clearer. So this is our VPC, that is what we want to create, and so we're going to use the same CIDR, so 10.00016. so since in my case I've already used 10.00, so I will say 10.1.0016. so this is my VPC CIDR, but in your case you can use 10.0.0.0/16. so in this we want to create, the first step is a subnet, a private subnet. So we need to in two multi-zones, we want to create a multi-zone, so private subnets, public subnet, and private subnet. In the same way we want to create a public subnet and a private subnet. So we need to define So we can say this is zone 1A, right, and this is zone 1B. So in zone 1B we would create a public subnet which would have the range something similar, 10.1.0024. So we will have 10.1.0.0/24. So that will be a public subnet. In the same way, we will have 10.1.1.0.24 in the private subnet of zone A. So right, in the same way we will have a public subnet in zone B, and we will create 10.0.10, in my case 10.1.2.0.24, because I already created a subnet with that particular range, so I don't want to touch whatever I already created once. And in the same way I will have 10.1.3.0.24. So this is my private subnet. Ten point 1.3.0/24. So this is what you want to create. Once you create this, you want to create a machine over here. So what you can do, you can go ahead and create a website using your lab 1, or my first video. You can create a website in a public zone. If you have already created that, it's good. And so it's going to be the same steps. So ideally the database is lying in the example which they have given. The database lies in the same machine. But what you want to do ultimately in this lab, you want to separate this and shift it over here, right? And of course we want second copy, right? A replica. It can be a read replica. So we want to have that in the private subnet. Now in case if you want to access the private subnet, if you want to access the database, ideally you need to open port number 3306. So let me see if I can. So let's actually, before going ahead, and let's create a VPCs, okay? So let us look at the step of creating a VPC. So you need to have access to this particular lab project cloud web application. In your case, the number will be slightly different. You have to click modules, and in the modules you will have the lab. So you can open the lab over here, and it will try to open this Workarim lab, and you need to go ahead and start the lab. So right now I've already spent $12. That was probably because I don't know whether the machine is in use for 4 days. I've stopped it, but still it's getting charged, or maybe I took a lot of resources. So let me go ahead and start this lab, and I'll wait for this to become green. Okay, so this is turned green, so my environment is ready. I can start the lab. It will connect me to US East region, North Virginia. So I've already performed this lab once, and that's why you'll see some of these things already existing, but I'll try to repeat this lab again. So you need to go in VPC, as I told you. You can open up the VPC console. and you can try to create a new VPC. So when you try to create a VPC, you want the public and the private subnets to be created automatically. That's why you're going to go with VPC and more. So I'm going to name my project as Cloud Web App 2 TWO, because I just want to give it a different name. I've already created with the same name, so I don't want to use the same name. So this is the I'm saying Web App 2, and as I told you, I'm going to just change this to 1.0 so that I'm in a different I'm creating a different network. So what is this going to do? This is going to create a cloud web app VPC. This is going to create a US East 1A. It is going to create a public subnet and a private subnet in 1A and 1B. And what else? And it is defining some access over here, network connection like IGW for the public so that the internet is open. So our subnets is going to be by default created, but you need to make sure you give a proper CIDR for them. So number of public subnets 2, number of private subnets 2, and customize. So let's open this customize. So what it has done, so now I could have used this, but purposely I'm going to just go with what I have created. So 10.1.0024, right? So 10. This is okay. So I'm just increasing the number of I'm reducing the number of computers, okay? And my private subnet is 10.1.1.024. Sorry, this is a 1B public. So 1B public is 10.1.2.0. So 2.0. So I'm going to reduce the number of computers IPs that can be created. 256 IPs can be created in this subnet. Then in the private subnet, I have 10.1.1.024. Right, and the other private subnet has 10.1.3.024. So hopefully I have. Then it says NAT gateway allows private resources to access the internet from any availability zone within the VPC, providing a single managed internet exit point for the entire region. So we are going to go with we need a NAT gateway because the website, as I told you, the website is in public subnet, but the database is in private subnet. So we need an access from public. Ideally we may not require a NAT gateway, because NAT gateway means we want machines inside the private subnet as internet access, which ideally is not required. So it's a one-way direction where internet access is going outwards. So nobody can access a computer from outside, but definitely we are going to open up access for public. So I'm going to show you how. But before that, anyways, we'll create a NAT gateway in one AZ, means we just want to create one NAT gateway. Through that NAT gateway, if required, we will access the internet if required, or from we'll see what we require or not. So having done that, I think the VPC is ready now. So we are going to create it, and hopefully everything is going to create it successfully. So as I told you, this is the first step where the VPCs have to be ready. Okay, so it says it is successfully created a VPC. So I can view my VPC. So if I say, so it says Cloud Web App to VPC. If I say your VPCs, I'll see all my created VPCs. So this is my VPC over here. I've already created another VPC. If you notice, some VPCs for my experiment earlier. So now we have created a VPC with in two zones. In each zone we have a public subnet, private subnet. So now what are we going to do next? So I would recommend that you create your database. It will help you basically connect to your database. You can create your website in the third step, but in the second step, we want to create a database. So we have over here, we already have a public subnet, a private subnet in zone 1, right? This is zone 1. So let me give it a different color. And then we have zone 2, 1B, in which we have another public subnet and private subnet. So the way you're going to create the database is the same way you have performed your lab on database as a service, the RDS service. So exactly same thing you need to do, but with the zones over here. So I'll have a 1B, this is a 1A private, right? So we are going to create a database in a private. So we're going to create a RDS database, MySQL, which is going to be a multi-zone with a read replica over here. So I'm going to have a RDS MySQL read replica. And this is what we want to create. On this we want to for this experiment there is a particular database we want, students. So we are going to create the students database, and we are going to add we want to add some rows into it. Okay, now when you are creating the database, so what we are going to do, we continue this in your next video number 3, where we will focus on this. So I'm going to specify how this is done a little more in detail in your next video. Thank you.